Are you ready to say goodbye to self-doubt so that you can build that wildly profitable business of your dream? You are in for a treat. Our guest this week, Carrie, combines neuroscience to teach us how to rewire our brains through our mindset so that we can actually create that time and financial freedom we desire. She is also a fellow podcaster of Set Yourself Free, which shows the behind the scenes of what it really takes to be a profitable entrepreneur. And guess what? It's not what you think. I hope you enjoy this episode and join her next week as she hosts a funeral for 2021. So let's dig in.
You're listening to Feed Your Body with Love with Jen Dragonette. Prepare for a tsunami of self-love as we learn how to let go of the ingrained desires to please others, fit in, and live by society's standards. It's time to be proud of who you are, love your present body, and awaken your inner magic by being your true, authentic self. Let's dive in.
So, welcome to the podcast, Carrie.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
I am really excited to have you. I've been doing a little internet stalking and I'm really excited for this conversation. I hate saying the word stalking, but I'm going to say it anyways. I'm going to start with my favorite question. What is that thing like in this moment, in this time in your life that is lighting you up the most?
The most, I would say, is helping women in particular understand the power they have within themselves to create their desires.
Oh, that's a juicy story. I know there's a juicy story about how you got to wanting to help women with that. Are you willing to share a little bit of how you got there?
Oh, of course. I'm very open. I'm always like, how do we be succinct? Because there's so much to it. But the short version is, I lived in a very disempowered state for much of my life. A lot of my story is I have celiac disease and I lived very depressed for much of my life until I discovered that I had this autoimmune disease that essentially was like leaking things out of my gut. And most of your serotonin is actually in your gut, not your brain. So that and the correlation between mental health and, all of the gut stuff, but then it still wasn't enough. Like I almost instantly became this like happier person and I wasn't depressed anymore, but I still didn't know how to access the power within myself. And to be honest, I feel like I'm just beginning to scratch the surface of like what is even possible, but I am so passionate about this work because conditioning will lead you to believe that like you have to settle for where you are and what you have. And I am just so incredibly passionate about helping women to unlearn, because most of this is unlearning, and then reprogram your life and your beliefs and your body for more. And so, it's just been a wild journey of like doing a lot of things. And I joke all the time now that if I knew coaching was a thing years ago, I would have been doing it this whole time, because I'm trained as a therapist and also ran an organization for a number of years. And coaching is like the perfect intersection of my therapy background and my desire to help people on like a very deep, intimate level, but then also helping women to actually make money and like do what they love in this world.
Oh, I love that. So how does coaching differ? I know they're totally different things, but in my mind, they kind of have like the same purpose. But coaching and therapy, like how have you blended those two together to create this like magical empowerment? I'm going to call it magical empowerment that you're giving to. It's a gift you're giving to people.
I love that phrase. I will use that. So to me, therapy often, and I have like no qualms with therapy. I think it's great and I'm super grateful for it. But it can also be past focused, like making sense of the past, asking a lot of questions of looking at like what and processing past trauma and different things that have happened. Whereas coaching to me is really, in a healthy way, helping people to stretch the edges of what's possible. And so also a little bit more forward focused and direction versus therapy. And like, when you're trained as a therapist, like you're really a blank slate. Like you're there to provide space for a client and help them to come to their own conclusions and really make sure you're like checking your stuff of not projecting onto other people. I still think those things apply in coaching and I'm very mindful of that. However, there's a little bit more of, yeah, like pushing people to their edges in a very safe way where they're safe in their body and regulated, but accessing that power within them.
Oh, that inner power. I want to know, like, what are some of the things that you do to keep that inner power, that inner fire going?
A lot of things. To me, it's staying really connected to my purpose and my why. Like, okay, so what do I feel like I'm here to do on this planet, at least in this moment? Because I think also we can put a lot of pressure on ourselves to like have it all sorted out. And I just think that's a lot of BS. Like, just who you are right now, what your mission is right now, and let that be okay. But to me, service is the heart of everything I do. And so if I'm really connected to that, it's easier for me to show up on the really hard days. And to have a bigger picture and a bigger why that is outside of me, because as much as I love my business and I love it, it's not about me. It's about helping other people to get what they want. And so when I stay really grounded in that, it gets to be easier. I also believe in mentors, coaching, masterminds, like all the support and all the things, because we all have human brains that like to lie to us all day long.
Oh, yeah. And if we're not lying to ourselves, someone else is.
That's true.
Like, this will work this way, I promise. I'm like, I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
So we're having a little bit of a conversation before, and you said that you have been living in different places. I want to know what drove you to like, what is that journey like? Because I'm sure this has a big role in like shifting out of these patterns and things like that. Like, I just want to get into all the juicy stuff.
Oh my gosh, yes. And I could talk about this all day long because it's a huge part of my story and what I feel like I just know I'm here to help people do. Again, it goes back to the conditioning, like live a certain way, especially if you're an American, of check all the boxes and what that looks like. And I never want to say I was like miserable because I wasn't. I mean, I was like in my 20s, but I was happy enough. And then I just constantly was like, I don't know, there's this still small voice inside of me that's like, there's got to be more, there's got to be something different. And so following that, listening to that, getting more connected to my intuition and trusting myself, which is really hard to do. Yeah. But I feel like I am the most free version of myself that I've ever been. And I just feel like, again, it's just tapping the surface because there's like so much more available. But yeah, I think moving outside of the US and shifting into new ideas and perspectives of what can be, of how things aren't right or wrong. Because that's a lot of my conditioning of like, this is the right way, this is the wrong way, this is how you're supposed to do it, this is how you're not supposed to do it, has been a lot of work. But it's also been a lot easier outside of the US where like you can't make sense of things with your same Western American brain because it just doesn't work that way. Like people have different perspectives. And so I am so grateful for the last few years in that, of living in Asia, now being in Mexico, of just tapping into the possibilities.
That is so interesting. Like, I haven't really had this conversation before about like the difference between like the Western mindset and the rest of the world. Can you like expand on that a little bit? Cause like, this is like super interesting to me. I'm like, maybe I do want to leave for a few years and then come back.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you'll come back and be like, which is what I did. I came back and was like, I can't stay. I'm out. And nothing wrong. I'm super grateful for it. But yeah, so I think for me, especially, like if anyone's a type A perfectionist person, right? Like, and that is my former self. I have almost not fully, because I still have a lot of like controlling parts of my personality and all of those things. Absolutely will own that. However, like so much of my perfectionism and type A-ness has just gone out the window, because if you try to operate with that mindset, so I was living in Vietnam, for example, for the last couple of years. Vietnam's the wildest place I've ever been. I've never been to India, so I can't compare. That's probably wilder. However, like scooters on the sidewalk, wrong way on the street, like drive through red lights, like do kind of whatever you want in some fashion. Like, yeah, there's consequences and there's communism, and that's a whole separate conversation. But it's like, if you're expecting everything to work the same way in your perfectionist, like must be on time, must follow the rules, like you'll just lose your mind every day and be so irritated. So my choices really in living with that, were my options, was like, okay, do I want to feel frustrated and annoyed every single day? Or do I want to be open and be like, all right, so this is not working here. How do I adopt a different way of being? And then I'll actually probably enjoy the journey a lot more too.
Oh, I love that. So what can somebody who is here in the United States do to have more of that, like, let go? I guess it'd be not have, it'd be let go of that perfectionism.
Yeah. So I have lots of ways. I mean, because you don't have to obviously leave America and go to Asia to implement these things. I will support it if you want to, but yeah. So honestly, like on a small scale, let's say you have a business, because this is something very common. And a lot of my like type A clients, okay, so how long is it taking you to write a piece of content? Like, is it taking you an hour to write one post? So if that is the case, to me, that's like a sign that you're struggling with perfectionism and overthinking or somewhere in there. And that's okay. Like, don't make yourself wrong for that. Like, have compassion for yourself. And can you set a timer? Like, this is such a super simple exercise I give clients of like, okay, so we've noticed it's taking you an hour to write a piece of content, or you're writing the content, but you're never hitting send or publish because you're so afraid of judgment or what everyone else is going to think, or it's not good enough, or any of those thoughts and things. All right. So your assignment is to set a timer for 10 minutes and you have to put out a piece of content today. And just see what happens. And then how can you have so much compassion for yourself in the process? Like, you're not allowed to delete it. You're not allowed to block everyone from seeing it. Like, you get to put it out there and see. And then you have to like learn to navigate that, of course. And that's a separate conversation, but that's like the first step of what you can take to practice.
Just that thought gives me so much anxiety. I'm like, my chest tightens up. I can feel my whole body closing off. Like, maybe I'm done.
Yeah.
And I can see that being freeing, though, being able to free yourself to be like, I could do this in 10 minutes. Watch this trick.
Yes. And you're going to hate it. Hate might be a strong word. You're not going to love it at first, right? Like the first couple times are going to be miserable and uncomfortable in some fashion. So that's why I say, like, be really kind to yourself. And what I would also suggest is like, I love the, I don't know if it's an official thing, but I call it the sandwich technique of like, do something really kind for yourself, nice to yourself first. Do the uncomfortable task, the 10-minute timer task, then go do something nice, kind for yourself. So you sandwich the uncomfortable thing with nice things. And then your brain begins to reassociate the uncomfortable thing with nice stuff versus like being mean and cruel to yourself. So I would recommend that the first couple of times, so you can really do something that's going to bring you out of that. Like, oh gosh, I put that out there, right? Like, go do something really kind.
My grammar's all wrong. Oh no, I should take it down.
Oh, 100%. Like, I mean, that was for me, like so much of that. Like, I had a grammar teacher growing up who would literally walk around, she'd read your stuff and be like, no, and like scream in front of the whole class, like mortifying to everyone involved. Right. But it was like, it had to be perfect or you got yelled at.
Crazy. So what are some of those nice things that you sandwich your stuff with? Because I mean, we're never done growing. There's always going to be something uncomfortable we're doing.
Always. I'm a big fan of just like simple things like, okay, can I have a dance party and listen to music? I honestly, the more I do this work, the more I'm like, if you can get your brain and body on board, so it's not just like cognitive or it's not just in your body, but you can connect those. So something like music or moving your body will like really connect you. So I like music, dancing. Let's say you do it at the end of the day. Maybe you pour yourself a glass of wine and have that as the ending to your day. Maybe you call a friend and like catch up and have a celebration of like, I just did this really uncomfortable thing. Can you help celebrate me? It doesn't have to be anything that's like huge or costs money. It can be so simple.
Oh, I love that. Simple. Simple as then you actually get it done. We overcomplicate
Yes.
everything.
Yes. And I honestly, I feel like that's my job of what I do. I'm like, I joke, my job is to give people permission and help them simplify, because I have clients all the time who are like, no, I can't do that. That's too easy. And I'm like, yeah, that's the whole point. I want it to be easy for you, and it can be easy and you can get paid, but we have to rework our belief system around that.
Oh, yeah, that belief system of it has to be hard to make us money. That is ingrained in society. At least I don't know if that's just a Western, like United States thing, or if that's all over, but man, I've heard that it has to be hard. Your journey has to be hard. I'm like, the more in flow and more play I add to my business, it seems like that's where it actually the money is.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I don't want to say like, oh, this always happens, but I had a period of time where I was like, people love to pay me while I sleep. And then like in 2 weeks, I was just like, sign a client, sign a client, sign a client, like every time I went to sleep. But it's like reworking that, because the hardest work is allowing it to be easy. But just like you said, like the play and the flow, like I just believe that's when things are the most magical.
So is there a client that you have in their past that's like, this is one of my biggest success stories, or those like, holy crap, that really just happened for someone else other than me?
Oh yeah. I love it. So one of my very first online clients went from $100 to over $10,000 in a month. And she like literally could not even handle it, because she was like, this is the most crazy confident I've ever become. And she did it all in a month, and she thought it had to be complicated and it had to be hard. But we literally just worked on her beliefs and her confidence. And then people were reaching out to her left and right. It's not like everyone always wants to know, like, okay, but what's the strategy? Like, what did the person do? And I'm like, I hate to break it to you, but it's really the internal stuff and getting to a place of receiving and believing that we're worthy, and then leaned back type energy. And like, that's where the magic flows.
Yes, it does. I am living proof that is what happened. My business
that.
is the only thing I did not go to school for. All right, the cat's
Love
out of the
it.
bag. I did not go to school for what I'm doing in my business anymore. I went to school for everything else, but
Yeah. But again, it's back to that conditioning, right? We're told work hard for what you want. And I have nothing against hard work. Like there's seasons and times and things you have to work hard, but it's mostly the working hard of like unlearning and unhooking our worth or our productivity or any of those things versus like what we're trained to believe hard work is.
oh yeah. So if someone wanted to unlearn and reprogram with you, where would they find you?
Yeah. So I have a free Facebook group. It's Set Yourself Free Community. I hang out there. I'm throwing a funeral. I know this sounds very strange, but I'm throwing a funeral for 2021. If anyone wants to come join, it's next week. We are grieving and saying goodbye to everything that has not served us in 2021 and welcoming all the freedom and abundance into 2022. And then I'm also on Instagram at setyourselffree.llc.
That is awesome. So I need to know more about this funeral thing. When is it? Is it all week? Is it just a specific day?
It's just a day. So it's on the 28th. We are doing it at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time inside the Facebook group. And we're going to do some exercises and be together in community. I just really believe in a collective experience of grief and letting go. I mean, to be honest, like letting go, I think it'll forever be my work. It's really hard. It's not easy. But acceptance, right? Like letting go of the things not serving us. And then how can I be both simultaneously so grateful for what I have while also listening to the desires and trusting that my highest self can have the things that I want.
Oh, I love that. I may have to wake up early for that one. Like that's before I wake up, but I think it just sounds amazing. I love that. I love the funeral. I'm like, you always think of it so negative, but it's everything in our life. One thing dies to rebirth something else. And it doesn't always have to be a negative connotation. So I love that you're bringing that other side to that word.
Yeah, me too. I never thought I'd be so excited to throw a funeral, but I am.
Amazing. So if someone was to walk away with just that one like mic drop, like pivotal thing that you don't want someone to forget, what would that be?
Honestly, I feel like the secret to life, if I had to sum it up, well, there's a few secrets, but one I would really say is you get to decide who you want to be, and you don't have to believe the thoughts in your brain, and you can truly reprogram both your brain and your body for who you want to be.
Thanks for listening to Feed Your Body with Love with Jen Dragonette. If you'd like to support the show and spread the love, leave a 5-star review and share with your friends to spread some serious self-love. For more information and to get in touch with Jen, visit feedyourbodywithlove.com. Until next time, make today amazing.